I want help raising my Kundalini. And that's all fine and good. It's a phrase I hear a lot of. And I kind of want to go on a mini rant about it because I think that in the West, we really don't know a whole lot about it. I definitely do not know everything about it. However, I have enough to have some opinions on it. And that's kind of what I want to share with you today. Because what I seem to find is that people in the West here think that the ultimate goal is to raise their Kundalini, and if you raise your Kundalini, you're going to be an enlightened being. It's kind of like, if I just do this, I'm going to get there where I want to get, which is great. It's great to have goals. It's great to be spiritually inclined. That's great. However, saying that I want to raise my Kundalini so therefore I can be enlightened and all powerful is kind of like saying I want to talk to fairies so that I know more about nature. That's kind of what it's like. And the reason why I give you those analogies is because when you talk about Kundalini and when you talk about fairies, you're talking about etheric things that live in a different dimension than where we live. And you're trying to get a very real world result from two very etheric things. So when you say, I'm just going to raise my Kundalini and then all my problems are going to be solved and blah, 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 it can be true, but it can also be wrong. And I think that trying to find ascension through Kundalini work is kind of a backwards way of looking at it, because to really understand Kundalini, it's an energy, so you have to understand energy first before you can even understand how the Kundalini works and exactly what it does. And from this point in my life, from all of the work that I've done, including becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher and studying esoteric things, from Yogananda's work to all sorts of different things, alchemy and all sorts of psychic stuff, is that the Kundalini is an energy, and when we say Kundalini, it's a serpent in the base of the spine, and that serpent is going to rise up. Now, if we are talking about Kundalini Yoga, the definition is a little bit different, where it actually resides inside the Dantian, which is kind of like right here in this area of the belly. I think the Dantian is 2 fingers below the belly button, and that's where it resides. And so that's the home, that's the generation, that's where all the energy generates inside the Kundalini. And then when it generates enough, it travels to the base of your spine, where it goes into what's called the root chakra, and then it starts to travel up through the spine. And there's channels inside the spine that allow this energy to move not only up, but also down, because it's an energy, so it has to flow. Energy always flows, right? And I don't think people really understand that your Kundalini can go down as well as it going up. When I say your Kundalini is going down, it does not necessarily mean that you're losing consciousness or you're regressing or you're moving backwards. But there is a channel where it does travel down, and it has to go down because it's in flow, So your Kundalini right now, everybody's Kundalini, from my point of view, is going in flow. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. I believe that most people's Kundalinis are probably moving in a very small flow. It's like you can have a trickle of a stream, or you can have a rushing river. When you have a rushing river, that means that you don't have as many blockages or impediments. Is how you say that word, impediments, in order to allow this energy to flow through your body. And the more your energy flows through your body, the more you naturally are who you are, the more you naturally let spirit run through you, the more ascended you are, the more connected you are, the easier it is for you to find the things that you need and just be in tune and on tap. It's like you're on tap of spiritual energy right then and there all the time. You're in flow. It's your life. But when you have all these blockages and impediments and stuff like that, the flow is very small. And it goes up and down, but it's still very small. So sometimes we can have a great burst of energy that rises up, and that's great. And often we have ascended masters and other beings on the other side that are very careful, and they are watching us and they've prepared us for that burst of energy. The thing is that Kundalini is always going to move and it's always going to rise as long as you are doing your personal work and your self-development work. You don't have to have it as a focus because it's going to naturally happen. It's a natural byproduct of doing personal and self-development work. It's not supposed to be the goal or the end all, because it is just a natural process that happens as you grow, as you become a better person, as you become more full of a person. The Kundalini can be a really great diagnostic tool if you know what you're looking for and if you know how it feels and where it works. In my meditation practices, I have literally felt the flow of the Kundalini, which is why I say in my experience, this is what I feel happening within my body. But it also tells me where my blockages are. It also tells me where I have impediments, because I can literally feel the energy moving up my spine or down my spine, and I can feel where it gets constricted and I can feel where it gets wider. I can feel where it has to navigate around things, and that's a really great way to self-diagnose what needs to work for you. Now, there's this conception that Kundalini energy is very dangerous and that you shouldn't play around with it, and I happen to agree. The reason why I agree is because this energy is a very powerful force, and you really have to be prepared for what happens after a Kundalini awakening happens. So while your Kundalini is always operating, always moving, and it's always growing and shifting, there are what I call Kundalini awakenings. And Kundalini awakenings are massive and fast shifts inside your energy field caused by a Kundalini awakening, caused by some great realization of some sort. And there's a burst of energy that moves up or moves down. And so often what happens is that there is such a massive shift in your energy that you have physical, spiritual, emotional, and mental and symptoms that are just overwhelming. All of a sudden, you can't focus. You are in a high. You can't remember to feed yourself. You hurt all over the place. You find it challenging to walk. You find it challenging to relate to people. You find it challenging to even think. You begin to experience psychosis in different ways. Your brain doesn't work like an average person's brain. So there's all sorts of different symptoms that can happen in this awakening. So those are kind of the negative symptoms that can happen. And I feel that sometimes people try to purposely awaken the Kundalini as fast as possible, not realizing that the whole spiritual path is a process of preparing you for the Great Awakening. And by the Great Awakening, I mean the awakening that will lead you to become enlightened or ascended or whatever, And when I say those words, what I'm referring to are the states that the Buddha lived in, that Muhammad lived in, the states of all the beings that have ever lived within Christ consciousness. Because Christ consciousness is a state from which you operate where you are operating literally from unconditional love. And the reason why I say that is because unconditional love is where miracles happen. So we'll get into that in a different video. But right now I just want to stay focused on Kundalini. So, Kundalini is just it has to either be guided by a spiritual person who knows what they're doing, which if you read some of the ancient yogic texts, you will actually find stories where so-and-so was serving this master, and this master touched him, and the Kundalini rose, and he continued to serve, and then went out on his teachings, and so you can find stories like that, and it was always done by a master who was guiding the process, because the master can also automatically realign whatever is disharmonious inside the person's field. They can help you navigate the feelings that are happening, the mental leaps that are happening, because it's not just an energy leap. It is literally a physical, emotional, spiritual leap of consciousness that you have to take when the Kundalini awakening happens, because a massive energetic change has taken place. So in my work with people, when people approach me that way, I don't necessarily go on a 10-minute rant about Kundalini energy, but I do say that if you do choose to work with me, we're not going to have Kundalini rising as a focus. I mean, if it happens spontaneously, often it's because you have a lot of support inside the etheric realms who are guiding the process and helping you through the process, And I believe it's important for people to have them sometimes, because they open people up to realms that they need, and they also get realigned onto the path that they need to be on. Whenever we have huge, massive energetic shifts, it changes everything in our lives, because it's changing our filters, our perceptions, our mental processes, our everything. The way that we respond to people changes, and it's so important that we go at a pace that suits us in this work. Often we will be pressed and pushed and pulled, and we will feel pressure, we will feel overwhelmed, and we will feel like, oh my God, the world is shaking. And that's great, because that means that changes are happening. And after we break through that, we can sigh with release, with relax, So it's just one of those things where I just think that the New Age community has glorified Kundalini work. I meet people repeatedly who are like, oh, my Kundalini rose. And I'm looking at them, and they're not exhibiting states of consciousness and things that I would contribute to a Christ-like consciousness, in my opinion. I think it's more accurate to say that my Kundalini has shifted. And I do believe that there are practices that we can do actively that will shift our Kundalini. Just like Kundalini yoga, there have been many times when I've been in a Kundalini class, and all of a sudden from the back of my spine, I will feel a flash of heat, and I will feel that just flash through me. To me, that does not mean that my Kundalini has risen. To me, that means that something has shifted so that more of the energy can flow. I am clearer. I am changed.